I got 6 of FOLEY'S queens left, and I got 2 of them that are tan. And I've got 2 black ones and then 2 brown ones. This is a pretty small colony, but they'll come back. For now, I'll close them up later. And this is the insulated shim that I use. Whoops. Whoa. This is the insulated shim that I use. I fit in there, take up the space of 5 frames, 1 on each side. Pretty sure I've got the bees I'm gonna have get me through spring anyway, and then I'll start doing some grafting next month, and hopefully I'll start having some new mated queens in June. The big beekeeper that places bees near me does it mid-June. It's Michigan Bee Works. He's got over 3,000 hives, and he's telling people he makes $1 million or more a year. So I would guess he's got some pretty good bees, and I just as soon mate with his rather than split up mine. I've got a lot of stuff left over from last year. You know, even if you lose bees, it's not really a complete loss when you consider all the frames of honey and pollen. And I've got 48 deeps in here, and I'd say I average maybe 1 nuke that I could start with each of these deeps, so I've got basically 48. This is a colony that's one of my queens that I grafted in 2016 that I've featured in several of my videos. She's doing really well. She's going to have her 2nd birthday here in a couple months. And like I said in some of my other videos earlier in the year, or late last year, I stack these deeps in here, and I put the large colonies on the bottom and the small colonies on top. So that way if you lose a small colony, you don't have to dig all the way down through to get to it. But I do check them every couple of weeks. It just takes a little bit of work. Anyway, you put the small colonies on top, the large ones on the bottom, and then when you start moving them out, you can set stuff in front of the hives. Some of the bees will go back to the original location. You know, like number 14 here is one of FOLEY'S queens. It was a very small colony, and the one that was in that location prior to that was a large Italian colony. And a lot of the bees came back to this colony here without killing the queen, and therefore it took care of that problem with her having a small colony. In the previous years, I was putting hives in these windows 5 high, doing it on a ladder. It wasn't really the best situation, so I decided to build this and do only 4 high. We don't have to get on a ladder. And this is where I put all my mating nukes during the summer. Put them right here, so there's plenty of room. And I will be doing that this summer, and I will demonstrate how you can do that. It's a whole lot easier than buying queens, and it doesn't cost you anything to make your own. You know, I built this last fall, whereas before, and you see my house, I've got really high ceilings, so when bees got loose in here, it took a long time to gather them up. So now I can close the door And eventually I'm going to put some commercial wall paneling in here, like for restaurants or something that you can clean easily, because drywall and paint doesn't clean too well with bee poop. So anyway, in here, if I have colonies outside, out there, I usually put them there during the winter. And I put these, you put this shim here above the two deeps, between the deeps and the medium has the honey, and you can monitor the size of the cluster. And then when it gets to the point where you don't see very many bees, and you know they're in crisis mode, to keep them from freezing during the winter, I bring them in here. I can get 12 in this window. I'm going to buy some windows this summer to get these bees out of here and finish my construction. But I'm going to buy windows that I can take the windows out of the frames, and I will stick in these deeps, 12 on each side, a total of 24. And then if I have to, I can stack stuff in here. But then if you stack them in here on these posts, you have to take them out when it's nice. And that's what I've been doing right now, because right now I still have temps in the 20s at night. So I will take these out in the morning when it warms up, and I will bring them in at night until we get temperatures in the 40s at night, or until the colonies get large enough. So this is a situation that I was in. Like I told people about Foley, he ships these queens in these boxes, and it says on here, air vents do not block. He puts the queens in the cage, and then he packs the box full of workers. My first order was smaller than the second, and the second order was large. You can only get 28 queens in here, and I had 26 shipped. And he had a bunch of workers in there. There was a whole mess of them. And what happens is, when they get hot, this is August and the temperature in the 90s, when they get hot, they want to get out of the box. What do? They cover the screens on both sides of the box. And that's, the air vents are blocked by doing that. And the box gets even hotter than it was before they covered the screens. So what happens is the queens die. In that order there are 26 queens. 6 of them never made it out of the cage. And I know the rest of them died the following days, because I did one order in July. That went fairly well. Out of 20 queens, only 2 died. And I ended up with 18 colonies. The second order was a complete disaster. And what I did last year is I bought some Italian packages. I didn't want to mess with the bees that I had been working on for several years. So I bought some Italian packages. I bought 18 packages, and I had 4 of my colonies left from last winter. I had a terrible time the previous winter, because I was under the assumption that you can do nukes and not have any trouble with mites, because everybody says you don't have trouble with mites until like second year or whatever. Well, that's not true. Well, from what I'm finding, I went several years without having any trouble with mites. What I'm finding now is you can't have any mites in the hive whatsoever. Either the virosis is being spread from bee to bee once the bees get it from the mites, or there's something else going on, because you can't have any mites in a hive at all. I was losing, 2 years ago, I lost 80%. So I figured I'd try these Russian bees from FOLEY'S Russian bees, thinking that they'd be better, and it turns out they weren't. Because this is what I had in August. I had a total of 60 colonies, because I had like 46 from Foley, and I lost some of the packaged queens, I think. Well, actually, I'm certain of it. You buy packages, you're getting old bees and old queens from these big commercial beekeepers. They're not going to kill their queens when they requeen every year. There's too much loss in that. They will sell their bees, and they will sell their old queen. When you buy a package, that's what you're getting. Unless you buy your package from a specialty dealer. I bought my bees from a local beekeeper, and he said that's what he uses. Okay, whatever. So anyway, a lot of those queens died. And then this requeening I did in August, most all those queens died within a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. There's nothing in there but queen cells. So I went ahead and I let the queen cells mature, see what happens. And keep in mind, we haven't had any rain since June. and it was a drought. Not the best time to be doing mating, but I went ahead and I tried it, and things didn't work out that well. Well, anyway, by September 21st, I had 44 colonies, and 20 were Russian. I didn't have too many losses from that first order from Jason Foley. And then 24 Italian, and quite a few, well, probably about a quarter of those were some of the newly mated queens I had. And then the mites, because it was cooler and dry summer last year, the mites were terrible. All the colonies had mites in them, including the ones from Foley's queens. So I worked really hard after Labor Day getting those mites out, doing powdered sugar several times a month, sometimes twice a week. And the trouble with with the nukes, you get a small cluster of bees in there and you powder them, what do? They leave the brood, and the brood will die. So there's a size limit on powdering, and sometimes you don't have a choice. Either you let them die from the mites, or you powder them and they lose their brood and they get small from that. So it's a tough call. Well, anyway, first day of winter I had 28 colonies, and 16 were Russian, 12 were Italian. So you would think, okay, Foley's bees are doing pretty good at that point. And I thought, well, even if they have trouble with mites, still they're doing better than Italians. But during the winter, things shifted the other way. But first day of spring, I had 19 colonies. I had 8 Russian, 11 Italian. So it's a complete reversal now. I have more Italians than Russians. And I checked my bees last couple days. So as of today, or I will say as of yesterday, I had 6 Russian queens and 9 Italian queens. And one of those is from my 2016 grafting. I've lost a couple during the spring, a couple that I've been bouncing around from one colony to the other. Number 46 was the only one that I put in a nuke. I did this last August, and I wanted to slow her down because I wanted to make sure she still had some fertile eggs for the following spring. And my other queens got bounced around from one colony to the next, and things didn't work out all that well. And I don't think any of the queens that I mated last August, none of them made it through winter because it was not a good time to mate. But hopefully things will be different this year. As a beekeeper, you're dependent on the weather. But, if you want to spend money buying queens from somebody, you're going to shell out a lot of money. And I see they've gone up again this year. Bees are expensive, queens are expensive. And there's no guarantee they're going to live more than a few months. But if you try mating, you're not shelling out any money. And the odds are you could end up with some really great queens. Russian honeybees, there's a certain percentage of them that are resistant to mites. They're probably better than all the other honeybees. And I agree with that. The Russian bees are resistant to mites, but not 100%. When you buy these queens from these Russian honeybee dealers, they're not going to test them for mite resistance. They would take 6 months to do that. They're going to make their queens and they're going to sell them to you because it's all about quantity, not quality. But if you make your own queens, you have the opportunity to weed out the ones that aren't performing as well as you'd like. And I've had to do that. I've had to kill queens that were just newly mated and I didn't like the way they were performing. So you kill them. But if I have a good queen, I don't requeen every year. I will take her out and I'll put her in a nuke and I'll let her see if she can get through winter. Because if she has been a good queen, she's still going to have good workers. And why not get as much out of her as you possibly can? Because if you requeen every year and you kill that queen when she's a year old, there's still a lot of fertile eggs left in her and you're killing all of those too. If you have a queen that's in a nuke and she dies during the winter, take those workers and put them in another. With this room here, I can do stuff like that. You can't do that if you just have your bees outside during the winter. You have to have a room in order to do things like this. So anyway, if you stick with me, I'll show you how to save money and you'll end up with a quality bee. Okay, thank you.